never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
They called him the silent superstar, a player who didn't talk trash, didn't seek the spotlight, and yet, when the ball was in his hands with the game on the line, everyone in the arena knew exactly who was in control. Picture this: Game 4 of the 2011 NBA playoffs. Dallas Mavericks leading by 23 points in the fourth quarter. The Portland Trail Blazers are on the verge of elimination, and their franchise player, Brandon Roy, hasn't even played yet. He's been sitting on the bench, doctors telling him his career might be over. But then, with 5 minutes and 42 seconds left, Roy checks into the game. What happens next becomes one of the most miraculous individual quarters in playoff history. 18 points, 4 three-pointers, a comeback for the ages. Vintage Brandon Roy, calm, collected, clutch. It would also be his last great moment. Brandon Roy was supposed to be the man to bring Portland back to greatness. A young guard who looked like the perfect blend of Michael Jordan's competitiveness and Tim Duncan's humility. He had the smoothest mid-range game since Kobe Bryant, the basketball IQ of Chris Paul, and the leadership qualities that reminded veterans of Magic Johnson. But just when the NBA was ready to crown him as the next great shooting guard, his body betrayed him in the cruelest way possible. This is the story of how one of the most naturally gifted guards of his generation was forced off the stage far too soon, and why, even 15 years later, NBA fans still wonder. What if, before we dive deep into this heartbreaking tale, you're watching Fink, your home for NBA stories, untold legacies, and deep dives into the players who shaped the game we love. If you're passionate about basketball history and the players who left their mark on the hardwood, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a story. We've got more incredible tales coming your way. Brandon Dwayne Roy was born on July 23, 1984, in Seattle, Washington, a city that would shape everything about his approach to basketball and life. This wasn't Los Angeles or New York, where basketball phenoms are made into celebrities before they can drive. Seattle taught Roy something different: humility, hard work, and the understanding that respect is earned, not given. Unlike the AAU circuit superstars we see today, Roy didn't burst onto the national recruiting scene as a middle school sensation or a viral high school dunker. His path was methodical, almost old school in its approach. At Garfield High School, the same institution that produced basketball legends like Jamal Crawford and Jason Terry, Roy developed his reputation quietly. He wasn't the fastest player on the court. In fact, scouts often noted his average athleticism. He wasn't the tallest at 6 feet 6 inches, and he certainly wasn't the flashiest. But what Roy possessed was something that couldn't be measured at a combine: an innate understanding of the game that went beyond his years. His high school coach, Ed Haskins, once described watching Roy play as watching chess being played at basketball speed. Every move had purpose. Every decision had logic behind it. At the University of Washington, Roy did something that's almost unthinkable in today's basketball landscape. He stayed for 4 full years. From 2002 to 2006, Roy transformed from a promising local recruit into one of the most complete players in college basketball. By his senior season, Roy was averaging 21.4 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 4.1 assists per game while shooting 47% from the field and 40% from three-point range. He was named Pac-10 Player of the Year and became the first player in Washington history to have his jersey retired while still active. But the most impressive statistic wasn't in the box score, it was his leadership. In 4 years at Washington, Roy never had a technical foul, never got into an altercation with an opponent, and never missed a practice or team meeting due to discipline issues. NBA scouts were intrigued by the complete package: elite skills, mature leadership, and a work ethic that was legendary even by professional standards. The 2007 to 2008 season was when Brandon Roy transformed from promising rookie to legitimate NBA star. His sophomore statistics jumped across the board: 19.1 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 5.8 assists per game. More impressively, his shooting efficiency actually improved despite the increased usage rate. The first All-Star selection came that February. At just 23 years old, Roy found himself competing alongside players he'd grown up watching on television. The Western Conference was was loaded with elite guards Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Chris Paul, Tony Parker, but Roy held his own. The 2008-2009 season saw Roy take another leap forward. His scoring average climbed to 22.6 points per game, and he was named to his second consecutive All-Star team. More importantly, he was gaining recognition as one of the best clutch performers in the league. Roy's clutch statistics that season were remarkable. In games decided by 5 points or fewer in the final 5 minutes, Roy shot 52% from the field and 89% from the free throw line. ESPN's John Hollinger ranked Roy as the third most clutch player in the entire NBA, behind only Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. Meanwhile, Portland was assembling what many considered the most promising young core in the league. Alongside Roy was LaMarcus Aldridge, and in 2007, Portland had drafted Greg Oden, the most hyped big man prospect since Shaquille O'Neal. The 2009-10 season was magical for Blazers fans. Roy averaged 21.5 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 4.2 assists while leading Portland to a 50-32 record and their first playoff series victory since 2000. The Rose Garden was electric again, filled with fans who believed they were witnessing the birth of a dynasty. Roy earned All-NBA second-team honors, placing him among the very best guards in the league alongside Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Paul. The 2010 playoffs seemed like Portland's coming-out party. They swept the Phoenix Suns in the first round. Roy was brilliant throughout the series, averaging 26.8 points per game while shooting 52% from the field. "Brandon is what every franchise wishes they could find," said Portland general manager Kevin Pritchard. "Elite talent with championship character. Players like that don't come around very often." But behind the scenes, something troubling was happening. Roy was dealing with knee pain that was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Team doctors assured him it was normal wear and tear for a player carrying such a heavy load. They were catastrophically wrong. If you're loving this deep dive into Roy's career, make sure that subscribe button is hit and that notification bell is on. The summer of 2010 should have been a celebration for Brandon Roy. He was coming off his best playoff performance, had established himself as one of the elite guards in the NBA, and was entering what should have been his prime years. Instead, it was when Roy first heard the words that would haunt the rest of his career. Degenerative cartilage damage. The knee issues that Roy had been playing through weren't normal wear and tear. Medical examinations revealed that the cartilage in both of Roy's knees was deteriorating at an alarming rate. The condition was described by one specialist as the knees of a 50-year-old in the body of a 26-year-old. Roy's first major knee surgery was performed that summer. The initial prognosis was optimistic: a few months of rehabilitation, and he should be ready for the 2010-11 season. But when training camp began, it was clear that something was different. The explosive first step that had made Roy so difficult to guard was noticeably diminished. The lateral quickness that allowed him to stay in front of opposing guards was compromised. Most concerning, the pain was constant and worsening. Roy tried to play through it. This was his nature. He had never missed significant time due to injury throughout his college and professional career. But by December 2010, it became clear that more drastic measures were needed. The decision was made to undergo arthroscopic surgery in January 2011. Roy was expected to return before the playoffs, but when Roy attempted to return to practice in March, the pain was excruciating. MRI results showed that the cartilage damage had actually worsened despite the surgery. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain, Roy would later reveal. It was the mental anguish of not being able to do the thing I loved most in the world. Basketball had been my identity since I was a kid, and suddenly, I couldn't trust my own body. As the 2011 playoffs approached, Roy was told by multiple specialists that his career was likely over. The risk of permanent damage was too great. The smart decision was to retire immediately and preserve his long-term health. But Brandon Roy had never been one to make the smart decision when his team needed him. And with Portland facing elimination in the first round against Dallas, Roy made a choice that would give fans one final, unforgettable memory. April 23, 2011. Game 4 of the first-round playoff series between Portland and Dallas. The Rose Garden was eerily quiet as the fourth quarter began. The Trail Blazers were down 67-44, facing a 23-point deficit that felt insurmountable. The Mavericks, led by Dirk Nowitzki, were methodically closing out what seemed like an inevitable series victory. Brandon Roy had been inactive for the entire game. Team doctors had cleared him to play, but only in emergency situations. With Portland on the verge of elimination, coach Nate McMillan faced an impossible decision. Insert a player who hadn't played competitive basketball in over 2 months, whose knees were essentially held together by determination and anti-inflammatory medication. With 5 minutes and 42 seconds remaining, Roy checked into the game. The crowd's reaction was immediate and emotional, a mixture of hope, desperation, and fear for their beloved superstar. What happened next became the stuff of legend. Roy's first shot was a three-pointer from the corner. Swish. The deficit was 20. 30 seconds later, another three from the wing. The crowd was on its feet. The deficit was 17. But this wasn't just about scoring. Roy was orchestrating the entire Portland offense with a precision that seemed impossible given his extended absence. He found LaMarcus Aldridge for an easy dunk. He stripped the ball from Jason Terry and converted the steal into a fast break layup. With 2:47 remaining, Roy hit his third three-pointer of the quarter, and suddenly the impossible seemed possible. The Rose Garden was shaking with noise that could be felt throughout downtown Portland. The Dallas players began to panic. These were battle-tested veterans who had been controlling the game for 40 minutes, but they had no answer for Roy's sudden explosion. Every shot he took seemed destined to go in. Every decision he made was perfect. Roy's fourth three-pointer came with 1:32 left on the clock. The comeback was complete. Portland had erased a 23-point deficit, and Roy had scored 18 points in just over 4 minutes of game time. "I've never seen anything like it," said Dallas coach Rick Carlisle after the game. "Brandon Roy played that quarter like a man possessed. He single-handedly changed the entire momentum of the series." Portland won the game 84-82. Roy finished with 24 points in just 13 minutes of playing time. His shooting line was absurd: 8 of 11 from the field, 4 of 5 from three-point range, and 4 of 4 from the free throw line. But the most remarkable statistic was this: Roy had played the entire fourth quarter without calling a single timeout due to knee pain. The adrenaline, the crowd energy, and his sheer force of will had somehow allowed him to temporarily transcend his physical limitations. In the locker room afterward, Roy was quiet and reflective. Teammates were celebrating, but Roy seemed to understand the significance of what had just happened in a way that others couldn't yet comprehend. To understand Brandon Roy's true impact on basketball, you have to look beyond the statistics and accolades. Roy played just 338 regular season games and 13 playoff games in his NBA career. But in that brief window, he left an indelible mark on the game and the city of Portland. Roy's playing style was a throwback to a different era of basketball. In an age increasingly dominated by three-point shooting and analytics, Roy was a master of the mid-range game. His footwork was textbook perfect. His shot selection was impeccable. His decision-making in clutch situations was reminiscent of the game's greatest players. "Brandon Roy played basketball the way it was meant to be played," said former NBA coach Jeff Van Gundy. "He understood that efficiency isn't just about shot charts and statistics, it's about making the right play at the right time, regardless of what the numbers say." What made Roy's game so special was the combination of technical skill and basketball IQ that's rarely seen in such a young player. His mid-range shooting was smooth and reliable. His ball handling was tight and purposeful. His passing vision was exceptional for a shooting guard. But beyond the physical skills, Roy possessed an almost supernatural calm in pressure situations. Whether it was a buzzer beater, a crucial defensive stop, or a momentum-shifting play, Roy never looked rattled or overwhelmed. Roy's influence on today's NBA guards is evident in players like Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These players combine Roy's smooth offensive versatility with modern three-point shooting, creating a hybrid style that might represent the evolution Roy never got to complete. "I studied Brandon Roy's game religiously," admitted Booker in a 2019 interview. "The way he could score from anywhere on the court, but always within the flow of the offense, that's what I try to bring to my game." His career averages of 18.8 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 4.7 assists don't tell the complete story. Roy was improving every season, and his advanced metrics suggested he was on track to become a perennial All-NBA first-team selection. "Brandon Roy was a superstar who never got to be a superstar," said ESPN analyst Jalen Rose. "In 5 healthy seasons, he showed flashes of greatness that most players never reach in their entire careers." The leadership qualities that Roy displayed were equally impressive. In an era of increasing player empowerment and ego, Roy remained humble and team-focused throughout his career. His teammates universally respected him, and opposing players acknowledged his professionalism. "Brandon Roy represents everything we want in a trailblazer," Portland general manager Rich Cho had said during Roy's retirement announcement. "His character, his leadership, his commitment to this city and this organization will never be forgotten." This is exactly the kind of incredible basketball story that defines what we do here at Fink. These moments, the miraculous comebacks, the impossible performances, the stories that give you chills even years later. This is why we love the game. If you're getting the same chills I am telling Brandon Roy's story, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We've got more legendary moments and untold stories coming your way. The most haunting aspect of Brandon Roy's legacy is the question that will never be answered. What if he had stayed healthy? Roy's career was cut short just as he was entering what should have been his prime years. Guards historically peak between ages 27 to 31, exactly when Roy was forced to walk away. At age 27 when he first retired, Roy was just scratching the surface of his potential. If Brandon Roy plays 12 to 15 healthy seasons, said former NBA executive John Gabriel, we might be talking about him as one of the 50 greatest players in NBA history. He had that kind of talent. The individual accolades Roy would have likely achieved are staggering to consider. He was already an All-NBA second-team player by age 25. With continued development and health, Roy was on track to be a perennial All-NBA first-team selection and likely a future MVP candidate. Roy's game had all the elements of a transcendent player: elite shooting, exceptional court vision, clutch gene, and natural leadership ability. Players with his combination of skills and basketball IQ typically have careers that span 12 to 15 seasons and include multiple championships. But the Portland implications are even more significant. If Roy and Greg Oden had both stayed healthy, the Trail Blazers would have had one of the most dominant cores in the Western Conference. They were already competitive with an injured Roy and an often absent Oden. Consider this alternate timeline: a healthy Roy, averaging 25 points and 6 assists per game, paired with a dominant Oden providing rim protection and interior scoring, alongside the improving LaMarcus Aldridge. Could this trio have challenged the Lakers' championship runs in 2009 and 2010? That Portland team was going to be special, said former Blazers coach Nate McMillan. Brandon was becoming one of the best two-way guards in the league, and Greg had the potential to be a dominant center. If they both stay healthy, Portland probably wins at least one championship in the early 2010s. The ripple effects would have been enormous. A championship-contending Portland team might have prevented some of the player movement that defined the 2010s. Would Kevin Durant have joined the Warriors if Portland was already established as a Western Conference powerhouse? Would the entire landscape of the NBA be different? Roy's individual career trajectory was equally promising. His shooting percentages were improving each season, his leadership was becoming more refined, and his clutch performance was already legendary. By his mid-30s, Roy could have been mentioned alongside players like Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and other elite shooting guards of his generation. Brandon Roy had everything you want in a franchise player, said Lakers coach Phil Jackson during Roy's prime: skill, intelligence, character, and that special quality that makes teammates better. Those players don't come around often. When Brandon Roy walked away from basketball for the final time in 2012, he faced a challenge that many retired athletes struggle with: finding purpose and identity beyond the game that had defined his life. Roy's transition was more graceful than most. He returned to his roots in Seattle, focusing on family and community involvement. He married his longtime girlfriend Tiana Bardwell and began building the stable family life that his playing career had often prevented. In 2014, Roy made a decision that surprised some but made perfect sense to those who knew him best. He became a high school basketball coach at Nathan Hale High School in Seattle. The same humility and leadership that had made him special as a player translated seamlessly to coaching. Coaching allows me to stay connected to basketball without the physical demands, Roy explained. I can help young players develop their skills and, more importantly, their character. Roy's coaching philosophy reflected his playing style: emphasize fundamentals, make smart decisions, and always put team success ahead of individual statistics. His players quickly learned that flashy highlights meant less to Coach Roy than consistent effort and basketball IQ. The results were immediate. Nathan Hale became one of the top high school programs in Washington State under Roy's guidance. More importantly, several of his players earned college scholarships, with Roy's recommendation carrying significant weight with college coaches who remembered his character and basketball knowledge. Roy also became involved in various community initiatives throughout Seattle. He established a youth basketball camp that focused not just on skill development but on academic achievement and community service. 15 years after Brandon Roy's career ended, his influence on basketball and the city of Portland remains profound and lasting. The Trail Blazers retired Roy's number 7 jersey in a ceremony that brought tears to the eyes of fans who had watched his meteoric rise and heartbreaking fall. Brandon Roy gave our city hope at a time when we desperately needed it, said longtime Portland fan Maria Rodriguez. He showed us that you could be a superstar without being arrogant, that you could lead without being loud. Roy's influence on modern NBA guards is undeniable. Players like CJ McCollum, who later became a Trail Blazers star, openly credited Roy as an inspiration. The smooth mid-range game, the clutch gene, the unflappable demeanor under pressure, these Roy trademarks marks can be seen throughout today's NBA. Portland's fanbase carries Roy's memory differently than most retired players. There's no bitterness about what he couldn't accomplish, only gratitude for what he gave them. Roy merchandise still sells briskly at Trailblazers team stores, and his highlights regularly go viral on social media platforms. Here at Fink, we're committed to preserving stories like Brandon Roy's, the tales of players who may not have gotten the endings they deserved, but who left marks on the game that will never fade. If this story moved you, if it reminded you why you fell in love with basketball in the first place, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Hit that notification bell, because we've got more incredible NBA stories, untold legacies, and deep dives into the players who shaped the game we love. The silent superstar may be gone, but his story and the lessons it teaches us about perseverance, grace, and the cruel beauty of sports will live on forever.